Well, good morning, good afternoon. Where's the camera at? What am I supposed to look at? I've actually got two screens here. My screen capture software is over here. It's easy for me to look back and forth and see what's going on. Okay, this is Scott with ReadySquirrel.com. Smash that like button, subscribe, and show us some love. Small channel trying to grow. This article is an experiment. I'm experimenting on you guys, and I'm admitting it. I'm trying to speed up content on the blog to create more articles, spend less time. I'm sure I'm going to find a happy medium, but this article was written in one day, and I didn't even start writing until like 10 today. I had a bunch of stuff that I had to do this morning. So here we go. What is prepping for a survival situation? We don't have a crystal ball, so we never know when an emergency or natural catastrophe will raise its ugly head. There's going to be some typos in this baby. One of the scariest things that could happen during hard times is running out of food, water, or the supplies that you depend on. Prepping for a survival situation is to store food, water, supplies, and survival gear that will help you survive events like hurricanes, civil unrest, or personal misfortune. Shelter, clothing, and fuel are also considerations for prepping. This is a beginner article if you hadn't noticed. There is a lot more that goes into prepping survival than this simple definition. For millions of people, prepping is a lifestyle. We really shouldn't be depending on anyone but ourselves to get through hard times. If you get some help, that is icing on the cake, but don't gamble with your safety and security. Start prepping. Yeah, that's not to say that you shouldn't be neighborly, you shouldn't try to help people out or try to get help or to build a group, but you shouldn't depend on others for your own security. Prepping by the numbers. If you're new to prepping, take a look at the following list. It's not comprehensive because you'd be reading a book if it was. It's a great primer to give you some direction for your own research. Determine what you're prepping for. Number one, what is the most likely emergency that will occur in your area? Start out prepping for short-term emergencies like power outages and slowly scale up to prep for longer-term scenarios like without the rule of law or the breakdown of civilization. Preparing for things like power outages is a great way to cut your teeth with prepping. The 72-hour emergency kit suggested by the Federal Emergency Management Agency is a great place to start. Once you get 72 hours worth of food and water in place, start looking into longer-term storage. Your mindset. Number two, and you can tell this is kind of a brainstorm. This is me just, from all the writing that I've been doing the last 5 months, this is just kind of what came out on paper. Mindset. Number two, prepping is a journey of independence. Get your food, water, and supplies squared away, and you won't have to depend on anyone when catastrophe or natural disaster hits. Start working on hobbies and interests that complement prepping like hiking, camping, fishing, and hunting. This will go a long way to prepare your mind and body for a survival situation. Go Dave Ramsey and work towards financial freedom. Use prepping to save money and budget. Purchase large quantities of meat on sale and learn to can. Get a grain mill, some sacks of wheat, and learn how to make bread from scratch. If you want to get serious with the mindset of never giving up and doing what it takes, check out the Ready Squirrel article, Number 1 Survival Skill, Survival Mindset and Reactions to Stress. And, of course, I forgot to put the link on there. I'm going to have to go back through this. Water, number 3. Water is more important than food for survival, and that is why it is one of the first suggested survival preps. Storing water for survival isn't very sexy, but you'll be glad you have it in a pinch. You can't have enough water. It isn't just for hydration, it's also for hygiene, sanitation, food processing, and gardening. Initially, have a supply of prepackaged store-bought water on hand and work up to learning about water treatment, storage containers, and dealing with larger water stores. The ultimate goal when it comes to water is learning to treat and store water for long-term storage. Learn about catching rainwater, treating pool water, boiling water, treating water with bleach or chlorine. Interesting fact, a 55-gallon blue water barrel weighs 458 pounds when filled. Food, number 4. Start with your 72-hour emergency kit and build from there. The bulk of the food in your initial emergency stores can be non-perishables like canned soups, stews, and meats. Start learning about long-term food storage techniques like packaging dry goods like rice and beans for maximum shelf life. Also learn about hermetically sealing foods with sealable food-grade buckets, Mylar bags, and quart jars for long-term storage of staples. Ultimately, you will determine what kind of food fits your personal situation. By choosing foods that you and your family eat, you can start rotating so you always have unexpired food on hand. As you learn more about prepping and food, you will probably become interested in foods that have the longest shelf life if properly stored. Rice, whole grains, pasta, honey, and etc. are the superstars of the prepping world. Gear and supplies. Gear and supplies is a pretty big bucket to fill. When we're talking gear and supplies for prepping, it's everything from good lightweight tent or tarp for bugging out to a hand crank grain mill for processing whole grains. As you move through the different layers of prepping, you will start researching these things, so don't stress about it. Think of the gear and supplies as if the utility you currently depend on quit working. Then learn how to replace necessary functions with alternate methods, but I think it should be alternative methods, or gear that will fit the situation. We can't cover every scenario here, but it gives you an idea of how to think about preparing for the worst. Think about things like this. The bathroom toilet won't flush. The shower and bathtub have no running water. The stove doesn't heat. The refrigerator isn't cooling. Household heating isn't working. Lights don't turn on. There are plenty of ways to solve these problems. The answers are beyond the scope of this article, but it will give you an idea of how to think about different emergency scenarios. Knowledge is truly power when it comes to prepping. The best way to approach your gear is to think about each scenario as your experience grows. Do some research and choose the best solutions for your situation. Keep it simple, go slow, and buy the best gear you can afford. Learn to do things without electricity. The crazy thing about prepping for natural disasters and emergencies is how many critical services can be lost all at once. It's a domino effect. If your power goes out, you may lose the service of everything in your house, including your water supply. Start planning to cover services like cooking, refrigeration, water supply, and heat so you can minimize discomfort. You could use some of the following non-electric items in a power out scenario, and these are just examples. Wood burning stove, sun shower, propane refrigerator, camp stoves, cook gear for outdoor propane grill. Again, these are just a few examples, but they should get the creative juices flowing. Oh, there's that phrase again. I keep using that. I need to come up with a new one. In a blizzard, you could lose your heat, municipal water, and electricity in one event. The same goes for other natural disasters like hurricanes, tornadoes, or civil unrest. Look to have backups for your electricity by using alternative power sources like solar, propane, natural gas, or wood. Do it like the Amish and start using tools and gadgets that work without electricity. As an example, use an axe instead of a chainsaw. There's less to go wrong. Doesn't require fuel, and not much can break that you can't fix. Have tools that you can use when the power is out. Have a plan. There are different levels of plan. Start by figuring out what you will do for a short-term 72-hour emergency, where you will go if a hurricane is coming, how you will get there. Start small as you plan, and larger long-term survival situations will be easier to figure out. You're learning, so give yourself a break. 6 steps of an emergency survival plan: emergency alerts, shelter plan, evacuation routes, communication, and there's a new one now. Just went up on FEMA's website. Check with the CDC in case of pandemics or breakouts for, like, if you're going to travel. Link to FEMA. Make a plan is under resources below. Gear and equipment to fit the emergency scenario. If you're staying home in an emergency event, it's called bugging in. This is the preferred method of reacting to a disaster. When you bug out, you're basically a refugee and much more vulnerable to the environment. If you're staying home during shit hits the fan, the main thing you have to worry about is whether or not you stored enough food, water, and gear. In a bug-out scenario, you're leaving the disaster area on foot or in a vehicle, so you have to worry about weight, transportation, where you're going, the route to get there, and how to avoid threats. The first gear you need in a plan, or gear and equipment, the first gear you need is a bug-out bag you can carry on your back. And the second thing you need is a bug-out kit for your vehicle that could include more food, supplies, and gear, because weight isn't as much of an issue. When planning bug-out bag for foot travel, pay close attention to weight. Any more than 20% of your body weight, and you'll have a hard time getting from A to Z. You may plan to leave or bug out in a vehicle, but you never know when roads will be blocked, bridges will be down, or emergency personnel will force you from your vehicle. This is in FEMA's contingency plan, so don't ignore it. A bug out kit goes in your vehicle. All your gear should be light enough so you can pick it up immediately and leave. You don't want to be running around the house looking for anything you need. There may not be enough time. Avoid taking stuff out of your bug out bag and go kit with the intention of replacing it later. You may forget you took it and end up without that MRE or whatever tool you took out. Then there's another prepping kit called an EDC, or an everyday carry kit. This is the kit you have with you at all times and wherever you go. I probably should have expounded on that, but I didn't. It kind of got lost in the cracks. Escape route, number 9. Know where you're going and how you're going to get there in case of an emergency. For many emergencies, you'll be bugging in or staying home. For others, you need to leave. I live in hurricane territory right on the Gulf of Mexico. If you have a Type 4 hurricane rolling into town, you're leaving. Where I live, there are 3 ways off the peninsula. 2 of them are bridges, so I have to plan ahead in case one gets damaged from water surge, and the water surge gets pretty bad. I have 3 dogs and 2 cats, so I need a hotel located in a safe area that takes pets. These are the types of things you need to think of ahead of time. If you wait, it might be too late. Number 10, learn bushcraft skills. Bushcraft skills like fire building, knot tying, shelter building with natural materials, fishing with a cast net, land navigation, and etc. It's pretty easy to teach yourself a lot of these skills by watching YouTube videos or by reading a book. If you find yourself bugging out with just a backpack and your gear, it could get pretty sketchy pretty quick if you don't know the basic survival skills of the wilderness. When it comes to bushcraft, there are two tools you really want to learn how to use: the survival knife and a ferro rod. With just these 2 tools, there isn't much you can't build if you have the skill set. What are preppers prepping for? In modern times, we've lost touch with how vulnerable society really is. I'm lucky enough that I knew my great-grandparents who grew up pre-World War II. They knew firsthand what it meant to go without and to be hungry. Most modern Americans don't relate. There are at least 23 reasons to start prepping today. Here's the 23 reasons to prep: hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding, tsunami, forest fire, blizzards, long-term power outages or grid down scenarios, personal illness, job loss, financial collapse, civil war, foreign invasion and interference, family or friend needs assistance, chemical plant explosion or leak, civil unrest, nuclear plant accidents, terrorism, explosions, chemical biological weapons, disruption of infrastructure, distrust of authorities, to save money, disease, hazardous material incidents, EMP or electromagnetic impulse, and solar flares. Okay, I read that quick because it makes me nervous. Yeah, there's a ton of typos in there. I had to improvise as I was reading, but I think it's, for somebody that's really new, I think it's somewhat helpful. You guys are going to let me know, I'm sure. Again, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. You can head over to readysquirrel.com and check it out. That's all I've got. Take care of you and yours. Hope you guys are doing great, and I will see you next time.